Can you tell us about your background in STEM and what you do for a living?
So my background is both in business and in STEM. So I have a bachelor in commerce and a master's in marketing and company management. But my background in STEM is I'm also an engineer and I'm a certified sound engineer.
Tell us a little bit more about your organization and specifically about your passion for tech for good and your work with the environmental sustainability. Those are very interesting aspects about your work.
So I'm one of the co-founders of an organization called V Robotics. And our mission is to create the network of knowledge hubs in the global south. So anywhere from Latin America to Africa to Asia, to create local knowledge hubs to use technology and mostly robotics technology, drones, artificial intelligence, or any other kind of moving or swimming robot that can help solve issues. So to create a network of local knowledge hubs who can teach anything from professionals to young students in the country how to use these technologies to solve social problems.
In your experience, how can the STEM industry, specifically robotics, offer economic opportunities to our lives?
Robotics, what I love about robotics, or even more about drones, is that they allow us to acquire data in a very autonomous way, so in a fast way, in a very easy way, and allow us to see things that we cannot see. So, for example, you take a country like Peru that has a number of issues, may be related to floods, may be related to illegal mining, may be related to humanitarian problems. A lot of times from the ground, you cannot see, much. With drones and in a very autonomous way, flying autonomously, you can acquire a lot of data and get many different perspectives of that. So for me, technology and robotics, it's just a tool. It's a tool to help decide something. It's a tool to solve a problem. It's a tool to show something somebody from the ground cannot see and needs to take a good decision about, or find something they cannot find from the ground. So in all of these elements, robots are just a tool to help local communities make better decisions or find solutions to something they don't know yet. And again, like I said in the beginning, why I like robots, it's really because they make it easy. They make it automated to do these things. They make it very easy. So even somebody, that lives somewhere out in a rural community can easily learn how to use it and can use it when they need it without having to, have somebody fly in from the main city and help out. So this is why I like automated systems, because it just makes it easy for a lot of different people to actually use technology.
Okay. How did you become interested in the STEM field?
Well, I think good question. Huh? So I would say possibly through two of my strongest personality traits. I'm a very passionate person and I'm a very curious person. So I love to find solutions to challenges, or I love to innovate. So in school, for me, for example, the one thing I loved most was mathematics. And later on in my studies, any kind of derived element like statistics or analytics, data analytics for many different things, anything from analytics for finance or analytics for customer behavior or for business questions. So for me, mathematics always was a way to find answers to questions I had. And my dad, he was an electrician. So when I was a child, I vividly remember he always let me dismantle things, like he kept me occupied with like dismantling things and then trying to put them together again. So that kind of sparked the whole interest in engineering also, to how to say, like, how does this work? How can I like make it work for this and this? So I think between really my passion and to find solutions and the curiosity, and my dad giving me a little push into this direction too. I think this is how it all started out.
Were there any people who inspired you when you were younger to pursue STEM?
I would say my parents. I think my parents, they always motivated me and my sister to be curious, to ask to do not just take things for granted, to ask why. And, like I bored, or I kind of wore out a lot of my teachers with that, because I was known as the child who would ask why all the time. But they just told us, like, ask why, be curious, learn about things. And they always told us too, me and my sister, that we can do anything in life we set our mind to and our heart to. So to never, let people tell us, no, this is not a job for girls, or you cannot do this. We can do anything. They always told us, as long as you put your mind, your hard work, and your heart to it, you can do anything. So they really are my heroes that allow me to do the many things I did in life, because I never doubted that as a girl, I could not do these things.
Tell us a little bit more about, you just mentioned the gender gap in your field.
It's a reality everybody feels, I think, in this field. It's just, so I live in Europe, I live in Switzerland, and the gender gap is really big here. That was an interesting statistics I saw the other day. In the 80s, there were more women in STEM than today. So it really makes me sad to hear that. So the gap is definitely there. And I think the society has a lot to do to reduce that gap. Because I deeply believe that, having more women in the fields of STEM will allow to help create better technologies, will help create more inclusive technology, more balanced, more ethical technologies. Women, I think we women, we have we have a gift to see things through a lot of time a more human lens also. We have the gift to include, to not be exclusive, but to include many different points of view. So I think all of that actually makes women very strong in technology, because they will come up with different solutions. And I had the luck to work in many great teams, but a lot of time I was the only woman. And I always had colleagues who appreciated the fact of having a woman who just thinks differently. It's just genetics, I think it's just, we have different ways, and it's not, one is not better than the other, but they become stronger when you combine them. And if it's only one or the other, you're missing out on something. And again, I was always very lucky to have men around me who appreciated that and who made everything possible to get the best out of it. Like one of the last teams before I set up V-Robotics, I worked in a Swiss company in digital transformation. It was a full male team. And the reason they hired me, they wanted a woman, because it was men, and they really said, we're missing a balance. We're missing another point of view. And I think this is where women's roles are so important in STEM. It's to bring in a different perspective, to bring in this kind of balance, and to bring in, I think sometimes more heart also.
Yeah, that was a question that we were going to ask right after that. Any specific skills, or what is it that we bring in that's different from men?
I always have I am surrounded by many amazing people, and I always have a problem to kind of, it's like, this is what one do better than the other. So I think we cannot generalize that women, but in general, where I feel where women are different is it's about emotions. We possibly are more emotional. We talk about our emotions differently. Which is like, I look at, how I talk with my girlfriends, and I see how the guys talk, what they talk about when they're alone. It's not the same things. Huh? I think women, for us, it's easier to talk about emotions and to make emotions part of everything we do. And this is so important, because in the end, when you look at technologies, why would why technology? It's not for the technology's sake. It's to solve something. It's to bring a solution to something. And emotions are such an important part of that, because it is for human beings. So, and human beings are emotional beings. We love to think we're rational, but we're not. We're so much about emotions. So I think this is where women, bring in something very different. It's that fact that for us, it comes easier to talk about emotions and to make emotions part of everything we do.
What are some of the jobs awaiting for the younger generation? What are some of the skills you are looking for in women in order to be a part of this new tech workforce?
That's a really interesting question. I think it's something I'm quite passionate about. I think we call it either human-centered design or design thinking. I think these are the kind of skills that are important. And to possibly widen up your how to say, like your array of skills to include very different fields. Like like I said in the beginning, so my background initially was in, more on the business side, and then I added an engineering diploma to it, and everything together actually gives me quite a diverse skill set. And so, for example, again, like human-centered design are great methodologies and great skills one can learn to design more inclusively, to design better for human beings again. So to not just have the technical skills, but kind of the methodologies that allow for more inclusive design. I think these are the kind of skills that are really important for the future. And then anything, like I think in any job, like one of the most important future skills is communication, collaboration, and facilitating, because everything is connected. In technology today too, everything becomes more connected. So to work in teams, to facilitate between ideas or different technology approaches, to talk to each other and find solutions together, I think these are really important skills. And they're really important skills, not just for people who kind of are more in the business field. They're actually really important skills, I think, for anybody in the STEM field, to collaborate better, to facilitate between what is there, and to advance faster just by collaborating and working together.
And how about the jobs? The jobs that are there are going to be available for our immediate future.
In our field, I think there's a number of jobs that actually come with building robots or repairing them or adapting them, but a lot of jobs are about applying them. While it's really fascinating to build your own drone or your own robot, but for me, what's even more fascinating is to make something out of it. So to use it, to apply it to a problem, to solve something. So in our field, there's a lot of jobs. Most of the jobs are not in the building part. Most of the jobs are in the application part. So you talked to one of my colleagues, Rita, who's a surveyor and a geospatial engineer. And it's exactly in these kind of fields, that there are a lot of opportunities using new technologies and applying them to your field.
Can you tell us a story about when you struggle and how you learn from your mistakes?
First off, possibly, I think I struggle on a daily basis because I always, in all my jobs, and especially also now, we kind of always try to push boundaries and to try out new things. So doing that, struggle is just an integral part of it. So my mistakes have always allowed me to learn and to see, them as like allies and not as something bad. So I only have one rule when it comes to mistakes for me and for other people I work with, is to say, only make the mistake once. Don't repeat the same mistake. So make other mistakes, but don't repeat the other one. Learn from it and don't repeat it. So now I need to come up with a good story. Well, possibly one this week. So we're working on a new program, internal program, to help our network to become stronger. And we have come up with some mathematical models we would like to use. And we thought, it might be too dry to do it this way. And we were pushing ourselves to and put a lot of effort into finding different levers, like kind of a frequent flyer program, like, is it like a blue level, a silver level, a gold level? And then we fought for hours and hours of levels and best names. And in the end, we actually asked our flying labs what they think. And this makes no sense. So for me, and then my colleagues, so I need to finish the story. So two of my colleagues, they were a bit frustrated, they say like, oh, we spent all this time and came up with some really cool names but in the end, who cares? It was a great learning experience. It's going through it. You think of other things and then you ask for feedback. And the ones who actually will use it will tell you, this is not a good idea. But the journey was really interesting because it also showed us some other different ideas. So for me, though it sometimes feels like a struggle, because in the end you can say like, I invested all this time and nothing comes out of it, or nobody likes my idea. But it's not about that. I think it's about the journey, and it's about learning on the way, which let us discover many different things.
Working with technology can definitely be stressful and at times frustrating. How do you deal with these difficult situations? What keeps you persistent when experiencing these challenges?
I would say and it's true. I think, there's a lot of stress and frustration that comes with working in technology. So for me, I would say the two most important things I do on a daily basis is I always start my day with yoga. So every morning I have my yoga session. And then I will try every day to do an outdoor activity. So to go out just for a hike, or, today I went for a swim. And it allows me to air my head. And but it also, yoga has allowed me a lot to learn how to breathe and how to take a step back, because when I struggle or when I'm stressed, I kind of get eaten up by the situation and I forget to take a step back. So what these two things really teach me on a daily basis is to be able to extract myself from a problem where I'm kind of trying to find a solution, and it stresses me and I will struggle, and just to take a step back. And taking a step back will give me a different point of view. So this has taught me how to get different perspectives and look at things from different angles. And even though I do it every day, I still forget it every day too. So this is why I have to repeat it the next day, because when you're in something, then I'm such a passionate person, I sometimes get like then caught up with things, and I always have to remember, okay, let me take a step back, let me look at it from a different point of view. And this really helps me to kind of work through the stress and the frustration.
What advice will you give to your younger self?
Possibly to say to not rush things. I always, I still rush things, but I was rushing things even more when I was young. It was always like, I was very driven to get to the result. And I think a lot of times I did not enjoy the journey. So what I've learned over time is, like, the result is not the interesting thing. It's the journey that is the interesting thing. It's the learning. And I would be so focused just on the result and kind of blinded, to look forward towards the result and just get there. And as soon as it was done, then get another result. And I think that if I could have learned earlier on in my life that the more interesting thing is actually the journey and not the result, it would have let me appreciate many more experiences.
What advice will you give for young women who want to pursue STEM?
Something possibly that is one of the main sentences on our website. It's not about the robots. It's not about technology. I think, when you pursue a career in STEM, sometimes you can get eaten up by thinking it's all about the technology. But in the end, it's not about the technology. It's about the solutions. And it's about what you achieve, or the challenges you solve. So I think the advice I would give to, young women is, so don't fixate on the technology, but fixate on the why you're doing, or the positive social impact that you can create with the outcome, that of the technology that you use or that you produce, or the science you look into. And again, I think women, we have this advantage of being, for us, it's easy to do that because of our emotional part also. So to really take advantage of that, to take advantage of, your emotions and put them into your work, and not be afraid, not to do that, because I believe this will make solutions, technical solutions, or any kind of science way stronger.
Based on your personal experience, how do you think women could shape the future of STEM in the world?
I think, I possibly might have said that before, so I might repeat myself. I think women will allow the field to become more inclusive. And at the same time, I think being more inclusive kind of rhymes with, more ethical and more balanced and more human-centered. So I think having women, as an integral part of STEM, and not just a few women, but a big part of women, is just going to be better for everybody, because it becomes more inclusive, which makes it, more diverse and more equal.
As we're living in these uncertain and difficult times, could you share with us some of the ways robots are being used for medical purposes? How could they help us deal with a crisis like the one we're going through right now with the pandemic?
Good question. So we actually asked our question, we asked ourselves this question also in the beginning of the pandemic. So, and my colleague, Patrick Meyer, one of my co-founder colleagues, he wrote some really interesting blog posts about that on our website. So while, I think the main issue with our kind of technology or a lot of technologies, there's a lot of hype. So people will come up and look for solutions to a problem, starting with the technology. So what could you use drones for? Which, should not be the way. You should look at what is the problem and can drones help solve this problem? And for COVID, a lot of times the answer will be no. There's not going to be, drones can, or robots can solve many problems, but possibly not that many problems related to the pandemic. Because there have been tries on, can a thermal camera help find the temperature? Would a drone be able to spray, disinfectants? So a lot of hype out there, but in the end, it's not going to make a difference. So I think in the longer term, but that takes quite a bit of, time to set up, where drones definitely can make a difference is reaching areas that are difficult to access, for example, for testing. So this is, it can be the case for COVID. It is the case today. There's really some interesting projects we work on with Flying Labs on being able to get samples, medical samples of very remote areas or areas that are cut by a river temporarily for 6 months of the year during the rainy season. Or, that are like in Nepal that have a deep valley in between where sick people will not be able to travel for 2 days. And by air, it's only going to be a 20-minute flight for a drone. So I think these are the kind of areas where drones can be very useful, is by moving samples to a central place, to a clinic for testing, and then sending back medicine on the way back for very remote places that are very difficult in access. A lot of time, places that, might not be hundreds of miles away, but just might be on a mountain across a really deep valley, or again, cut by, a river that is where the bridge is not available, or where it's really difficult to access because it's temporal flooding due to rainy seasons, which are the case in many, many countries.
Where do you see the industry going in the next 10 to 15 years?
Oh, wow. Now I should have skipped this question because I don't have an answer to that. If I would know, I possibly, would be in a very different position, so, so I don't know where the industry is going, but I have my dreams. So possibly I can tell you about my dreams for the next years of the industry. So my dream is that the industry, our industry, which, I think it's the case for many similar industries, that it becomes more inclusive. And like I said in the beginning, that it appreciates the fact that diversity is a plus and will help find better solutions. I think for any kind of, STEM industry, and especially the technology industry, is I think appreciating the fact of diversity, and that can be, not just between women and men, but just different from all around the planet, different cultures, bringing in different points of views, having different experiences in life. Bringing in diversity is a plus because it will help build more robust and better solutions. So my dream is really that industries, today a lot of time diversity is seen as something that just adds another kind of, issue to it, or you need to handle more. So why not better, just have a one culture kind of, approach to it. But it's not going to make it stronger. It's going to make it weaker. So appreciating diversity, I think for our sector, I really hope the industry is going to embrace that over the next 10 to 15 years. And then as always, I love technology. So I know that we have a bright future ahead of us, and even brighter if we, again, don't make it about the technology, but about the amazing things that we're still, are able to create and come up with.